Now, our top story. As the death toll rises in Gaza, Western leaders implore Israel to pursue better optics for their involuntary shrapnel swallowing contest. Israel's, quote, use of artillery and airstrikes to pound such a confined area packed with poorly protected people has led to a death toll 20 times as high as that caused by Hamas and wounded 1,235 more. Palestinians are being completely unreasonable here. Israel is simply remodeling Gaza houses as well as the unarmed civilians living in the houses.
An airstrike on a Gaza building housing the Associated Press and Al Jazeera sparked debate over whether it was a legitimate target. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the attack was justified based on now smoldering evidence.
Here's the intelligence we had. It's about Palestinian terrorist, an intelligence office for the Palestinian terrorist organization housed in that building that plots and organizes the terror attacks against Israeli civilians. So it's a perfectly legitimate target.
With no sign of peace, the world can only wait for enough bombs to be dropped that they burn Benjamin Netanyahu's corruption indictments.
Now, Governor, this violence has nothing to do with Netanyahu's consolidation of power and shouldn't even be brought up in conversation. Please chastise me for even insinuating a relationship between these circumstances.
No, there's no question that this action is taken on the eve of a political battle. But it is true that the first attack here was from the Hamas side.
You know, I feel so bad for Israel. Can you imagine if cameras were around when we were doing genocide on the Native Americans? Yikes.
Yikes.
Look, call me a Zionist, but the Old Testament says that Israelis must open fondue shops in historically Palestinian Sheikh Jarrah.
Well, now, let's not get too carried away. Once the Palestinians have learned their lesson, Israel should return to the 2021 borders established by me right now that include Asia and Turks and Caicos. In other news, since announcing his divorce, Bill Gates is emerging as a man unable to form healthy relationships with anything not a computer he's personally programmed to do exactly what he wants. We, of course, need to remain skeptical since these stories of Gates' relationships with his employees are coming out amid a messy divorce from former employee Melinda Gates.
Now, Governor, you and Bill have a special connection. Bill Gates once wrote on his blog, quote, one of the shorter, fun books I read this summer is A Nation of Wusses, How America's Leaders Lost the Guts to Make Us Great. It's by Ed Rendell. Now, that was in 2012. Was your book so good that it blew up Bill Gates' pleasure receptors and he had to chase that dopamine high by seducing subordinates and hobnobbing with rich pedophiles?
Well, let's start off by saying the man's a genius, obviously, and has great taste in books. But above and beyond that, regardless of this, I think Bill Gates will be known as someone who's done just an extraordinary amount for the people of the United States, and for that matter, the people of the world.
Well, I, for one, think we ought to commend Bill Gates' bravery in showing that people don't have to be perfect, or even particularly good to do good that is actually bad.
Yes, I mean, we are way too puritanical. What's next? We have to remove the phrase maintain bangability from our internship job description online?
Very true. Well, listen to this. There are actually 2 stories today about rich, powerful men exploiting status and wealth. Isn't that wild?
Surely that means there'll be none tomorrow.
It'll be a slow day.
Republican congressman and guy standing outside the Greyhound bus station with some wine coolers and an NDA, Matt Gaetz' sex scandal is unfortunately trending the wrong way. Quote, a Florida politician considered key to the investigation of Rep. Matt Gaetz formally pleaded guilty Monday to sex trafficking of a minor and a host of other crimes, agreeing to cooperate fully with prosecutors and testify in court in hopes of leniency for himself. So beautiful to see our legal system bringing justice to exactly 1 out of every 15 pedophiles.
And in a departure from his traditional courtship involving Venmo eggplant emojis and an economy cabin middle seat, the Daily Beast reports, quote, Representative Matt Gaetz snorted cocaine with escort who had no-show government job. It's more of an indictment of the gig economy that even escorts are forced to find side jobs as government officials.
Now, Governor, I mean, thank God Matt Gaetz didn't do something bad and speak out against Trump, or he would have met Liz Cheney's fate of party-wide condemnation. Back me up on this.
Absolutely. There's only one criteria for staying loyal to the Republican Party these days.
Look, you've got to let these young politicians sow their wild oats now so they can sow them later and also forever.
You know, I just don't understand why it's so hard for Matt to do what every other Republican does. Take the aggression you've built up from suppressing your sexual desires out on poor people.
Now, there is something to look forward to here. When Matt Gaetz gets out of jail in 2034, him and Don Jr. can run for president as the Koch twins.
Ooh.